Welcome to my channel. Subscribe and enjoy my new stories every day. I never imagined that my life would fall apart like this. My marriage to Marcia had been the cornerstone of everything, 12 years together, 2 kids, a home we both cherished. I met her in college. She was one of those people who lit up a room, and I fell for her hard. Back then, I had no reason to think I'd be sitting here today, reflecting on how everything crumbled around me. We had a good life, or so I thought. I worked in IT, and she had a steady job in accounting. Our 2 kids, Ben and Sophie, were growing up fast, and we were the kind of family that did everything together. Beach vacations, camping trips, and family movie nights were a regular part of our routine. We'd put off having kids until we got our finances in order, but once they came along, our lives felt full. But, looking back, there were signs that things weren't as perfect as they seemed. For years, Marcia had been drifting away, bit by bit. At first, it was subtle. She started spending more time on her phone, staying late at work more often, and when I asked about it, she always had some excuse. "It's just a big project," she'd say, or, "I'm covering for someone who's out." I believed her. I didn't want to be the kind of husband who snooped or accused without reason. We'd been together for so long, I trusted her. But then the fighting started. Not all the time, just little spats over things that didn't seem to matter. She'd snap at me for leaving the dishes in the sink, or for working too late on a project. At first, I thought it was just stress, or that maybe we were going through one of those rough patches everyone talks about in long marriages. But as time went on, those fights grew more frequent. And when I tried to talk to her about it, to really get to the heart of what was going on, she'd shut down. "I'm just tired," she'd say, or, "You're reading too much into things." So I let it go, thinking it was just a phase, something we'd get through together. It wasn't a phase. One night, about 3 years ago, everything came crashing down. I was up late working on a project for my job, an important deadline was looming, and I had to put in the extra hours to meet it. Marcia had already gone to bed, saying she was exhausted after a long day at work. I told her good night, kissed her on the forehead, and sat down at my computer to finish my work. That's when her phone lit up on the dresser. Normally, I wouldn't have thought twice about it. But that night, something in me shifted. I don't know if it was the way she'd been acting lately or the gut feeling I'd been pushing down for months, but I couldn't resist. I glanced at the screen. A message popped up from someone named N. It read, "Can't wait to taste you again tomorrow, baby." My heart stopped. My head started spinning, and for a few seconds, I couldn't breathe. I reread the message, hoping I had seen it wrong, hoping it wasn't what I thought. But there was no mistaking it. My world collapsed in that moment. The woman I had built my life with was cheating on me. I confronted her immediately. I stormed into the bedroom, yanked the covers off her, and demanded an explanation. At first, she denied everything. "It's not what you think," she said, her voice trembling as she tried to grab her phone. But I wasn't letting it go. Not this time. "Who is N?" I asked, my voice cold, barely above a whisper. I had always been calm, level-headed, but this was different. I felt like a stranger in my own skin, my whole body shaking with rage. She stumbled over her words, tried to spin a lie, but it was no use. The truth started trickling out, slowly at first, then all at once. She'd been having an affair with a guy from her office for months. His name was Nathan, and they had started sleeping together after one of their late-night work events. The excuses she had been giving me, late nights, covering shifts, were all just lies. Every time she said she was working late, she had been with him. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. The betrayal cut deep, and the worst part was, I couldn't understand why. I had loved her, trusted her, built a life with her. We had kids together. How could she do this? "I was lonely," she said, tears streaming down her face. "You weren't there for me. You were always working. I needed someone. Her words felt like poison. I wasn't there for her. I was the one who worked late nights to keep our family afloat. I was the one who made sure the bills were paid, that we had the life we always talked about. But none of that mattered now. She had made her choice, and now I had to figure out what the hell to do next. For weeks, I was in a daze. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. We had kids. We had a life together. Was I supposed to throw it all away because of one mistake? I wrestled with that question day and night, but deep down, I knew the answer. We tried counseling. I didn't know why, but part of me wanted to save the marriage. Maybe it was for the kids. Maybe it was because I didn't want to admit that everything I thought I knew was a lie. Marcia said she was sorry, that she wanted to make things right. But the trust was gone. I couldn't look at her the same way. Every time she was on her phone or came home late, I wondered if she was still seeing him. 6 months later, I filed for divorce. It was ugly. Marcia fought me on everything: custody, the house, even the kids' toys. She blamed me for everything, said I had driven her to it by being too focused on work, too distant. She played the victim, while I just wanted to get out. The divorce dragged on for over a year, but finally, it was done. I got custody of the kids, kept the house, and Marcia moved out. After the dust settled, she moved in with Nathan. She posted pictures of them together online, smiling like they hadn't just destroyed my life. She even had the nerve to post pictures of them with my kids, calling Nathan their bonus dad. It felt like a knife in my chest every time I saw one of those photos, but I kept quiet. I had the kids, the house, and the future I was going to rebuild on my own. For a while, I thought that was the end of it. I thought I could move on and leave her behind, start fresh with Ben and Sophie. But life has a funny way of surprising you. A few months after the divorce was finalized, Marcia called me in the middle of the night. I could hear her sobbing on the other end of the line. At first, I thought something had happened to the kids, that maybe there had been an accident. But it wasn't that. Nathan left me, she said through her tears. He took everything. I was silent, letting her words sink in. She went on to explain how Nathan had lost his job, started drinking, and gambling. Their savings were gone, and now she was broke and facing eviction. She begged me to help her, saying she had nowhere else to go. Part of me wanted to laugh. The satisfaction of seeing her fall apart like this, after everything she had done to me, was overwhelming. But there was another part of me that still felt sorry for her. We had been married for 12 years. She was the mother of my children. I couldn't just ignore that. But then I remembered everything. The lies, the betrayal, the months of sleepless nights and anxiety. And I knew exactly what I had to do. I took a deep breath and said, "You made your choice, Marcia. Now you can live with it." Then I hung up the phone. For the first time in years, I felt free. The days following Marcia's phone call were strange. After I hung up on her, I thought I'd feel triumphant, like I'd finally taken control of my life after years of emotional chaos. But the reality was more complicated. It wasn't a simple win. She had been the mother of my children, the woman I had once loved more than anything in the world. Now she was a broken mess, left behind by the man she destroyed our marriage for. Still, I couldn't let her problems become mine again. I had moved on, or at least I was trying to. It wasn't easy raising Ben and Sophie on my own, but I managed. My days were a blur of early mornings, school drop-offs, late nights finishing up work, and trying to be everything for my kids that I never wanted to fail at being. Ben was 10 now, and Sophie was 8. They were at that age where they understood more than they let on, but not enough to fully grasp what had happened between Marcia and me. They knew their mom didn't live with us anymore. They knew about the divorce. But they didn't know the whole story, and I wasn't about to burden them with that kind of weight. Not yet. In some ways, they were doing better than I was. Kids are resilient. They adapt to new realities faster than adults do, and for the most part, they seemed happy. I made sure to spend as much time with them as I could. We went to the park on weekends, had movie nights with popcorn and candy, and I even took them on a camping trip, just the three of us. It wasn't the same as when Marcia had been with us, but it was enough. Every now and then, I caught Sophie looking at old family photos. There was one on the wall of all of us at Disney World from a few years back. We were all smiling, arms around each other, the perfect little family. I noticed she would stare at that picture for a while before walking away quietly. I never brought it up. What was I supposed to say? That her mom had chosen someone else over us? That she had torn our family apart for a guy who didn't even stick around? I tried to keep things normal for them, but deep down, I knew things were far from normal. Marcia, for her part, stayed away. After that desperate phone call, I didn't hear from her for weeks. She still had visitation rights, but it wasn't consistent. Sometimes she'd cancel last minute, sometimes she just wouldn't show up. I wasn't surprised. She was dealing with her own mess now, and as much as it pained me to see the kids disappointed when she bailed, I wasn't going to chase her down. That wasn't my job anymore. Then, one Saturday morning, she showed up at the house. It had been months since I'd seen her. She looked like a ghost of the woman I had once known, pale, thinner than before, with dark circles under her eyes. I could tell right away that she was struggling, but I wasn't going to make this easy for her. I stood in the doorway, blocking her from coming inside. "What do you want, Marcia?" I asked, my voice flat. She didn't meet my eyes at first, just looked down at her feet like a scolded child. "I need to see the kids." I hesitated. A part of me wanted to slam the door in her face, tell her to go to hell for everything she'd done. But then I thought of Ben and Sophie, and how much they missed her, even if they didn't say it out loud. I wasn't going to be the reason they lost their mother completely. "They're in the backyard," I said, stepping aside. Marcia looked up, surprised that I wasn't fighting her on this. She nodded and made her way through the house. I watched as she opened the back door and stepped outside. I could hear the kids' excited voices as they ran to her, calling out, "Mom." It was a bittersweet moment. As much as I hated her for what she had done, I couldn't deny that they still loved her. And that stung more than I expected. I stayed in the kitchen, leaning against the counter, listening to the sound of their reunion. Part of me wanted to watch them, see how she acted around the kids, but I resisted the urge. It wasn't my place anymore. I had to keep reminding myself of that. After about an hour, Marcia came back inside, closing the door quietly behind her. She lingered in the hallway, looking at me like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. "What is it?" I asked, my patience wearing thin. She took a deep breath, her eyes finally meeting mine. "I need help, James." I laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind of laugh you make when you can't believe what you're hearing. "Help? After everything? You want my help?" Her face crumpled, and for a moment, I saw the woman I used to love, the one who I thought would always be by my side. But that version of her was long gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize anymore. "I don't have anywhere else to go," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Not my problem," I said coldly, crossing my arms. "You made your bed, Marcia. Now you have to lie in it." "I know I screwed up," she said, her voice breaking. "I know I hurt you. But I'm still their mother. I need to be there for them. I can't do that if I don't have a place to live." I shook my head, unable to believe the audacity of what she was asking. "You think I'm going to let you move back in here after everything?" "No, Marcia. That's not happening." "I'm not asking to move back in," she said quickly, wiping away a tear. "I just need a little help getting back on my feet. Please, James." For the kids. She played that card, the one I couldn't ignore. As much as I wanted to slam the door in her face and tell her to figure it out on her own, I knew the kids would suffer if she didn't get her act together. They loved her, even if I didn't anymore. I stood there for a long time, my mind racing, trying to weigh the pros and cons. Every part of me wanted to say no, to tell her to get lost and never come back. But the kids, they deserved better than this. They didn't deserve a broken, homeless mother. No matter how much I hated her, I couldn't do that to them. Fine, I said finally. I'll help you out with a place to stay for a while. But that's it. Don't expect anything more from me. Her shoulders sagged in relief, and she nodded, wiping away more tears. Thank you. Don't thank me, I said, walking toward the front door and opening it. Just don't screw this up again. She left without another word, and I stood there, staring at the empty doorway, wondering if I had just made the biggest mistake of my life. Over the next few weeks, I helped her find a small apartment across town. Nothing fancy, but enough to get her by. I wasn't doing this for her, I was doing it for the kids. I made sure she knew that. Every time she called or texted, I kept my responses short and to the point. I wasn't interested in rebuilding anything with her. I just wanted to make sure the kids had their mom in their lives, at least in some capacity. I thought things would get easier after that I could finally move on and leave her behind for good. But life has a way of keeping you tethered to the things you most want to escape. Just when I thought I had closed the chapter on Marcia, she came back into my life in ways I never expected. A month had passed since I helped Marcia move into her apartment, and things had fallen into a strange routine. I didn't hear from her much, which suited me just fine. She had her place, she saw the kids occasionally, and we kept our interaction strictly about them. It was the best I could hope for under the circumstances. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. I was slowly rebuilding my life, trying to find some sense of normalcy after the whirlwind that had been the last few years. The pain of Marcia's betrayal wasn't as sharp anymore. I wasn't naive enough to think I was fully healed, but at least I could get through the days without feeling like I was suffocating under the weight of it. Ben and Sophie seemed to be adjusting too. They'd ask about their mom sometimes, and I'd tell them she was fine, that she was settling into her new place. They didn't ask too many questions, and I didn't offer more than I needed to. They were still too young to understand the full story, and I wanted to protect them from the worst of it for as long as I could. But it wasn't long before Marcia became more involved in our lives again. I guess I should have seen it coming. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I was at the park with Ben and Sophie. They were racing each other up and down the slides, laughing and screaming in the way only kids can, while I sat on a bench nearby, keeping a watchful eye. I was lost in thought, enjoying the rare moment of peace, when I felt someone sit down next to me. "Mind if I join you?" a familiar voice asked. I didn't even need to turn to know it was her. "Marcia," I said, not hiding my surprise. "What are you doing here?" "I came to see the kids," she replied, her tone soft, almost apologetic. "I thought maybe I could join you guys for the day." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to tell her to leave, that she couldn't just show up unannounced like this. But the other part of me, the one that still thought of her as the kids' mother, knew I couldn't push her away. Not in front of them. "They're over by the slides," I said, nodding in their direction. "Go ahead." She smiled, a sad sort of smile, and got up to walk toward them. I watched as Ben and Sophie's faces lit up when they saw her, running toward her with open arms. She scooped them both up, laughing as they tackled her in a hug. For a moment, I was reminded of how things used to be, the way we were before everything fell apart. I stayed on the bench, keeping my distance. I wasn't ready to play happy family, but I couldn't deny them this time with her. She'd been absent for so long that I knew they were hungry for her attention, even if they didn't say it out loud. After a while, Marcia came back and sat down next to me again, her expression more serious this time. James, I need to talk to you about something, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I stiffened, already sensing where this was going. What is it? I want to be more involved in their lives, she said. I know I haven't been the best mother these last few months, but I'm trying to make up for it. I want to start seeing them more regularly, maybe take them for weekends. I was silent for a moment, letting her words sink in. I had been dreading this conversation, but I knew it was inevitable. Marcia was their mother, and as much as I hated what she had done, I couldn't deny her the chance to rebuild her relationship with them. But I also couldn't just forgive and forget. They deserve better than you disappearing every other week, I said, my voice harder than I intended. You can't just pick and choose when you want to be in their lives, Marcia. They need consistency. I know, she said quickly, her eyes pleading. I know I screwed up, James. But I'm trying. I'm getting my life back together. I'm not asking for forgiveness, but I'm asking for a chance to make things right with them. I sighed, rubbing my temples. This isn't about me, Marcia. This is about them. If you want to be part of their lives, you need to show up. Every time. No more excuses. She nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I will. I promise. For the kid's sake, I agreed to let her start taking them for weekends. But I made it clear, this was her last chance. If she messed up again, if she flaked or made excuses, I wasn't going to be as understanding. True to her word, Marcia started showing up more. She'd pick the kids up on Fridays after school and drop them off on Sundays. I could tell they were happy to have her back in their lives, even if they didn't fully understand why she had been gone in the first place. And slowly, I started to relax. Maybe she was really trying. Maybe she had learned her lesson. But as with everything in our marriage, things weren't as simple as they seemed. One night, about 2 months into this new arrangement, Marcia called me out of the blue. It was late, almost midnight, and I was already in bed. The phone rang, and for a moment, I thought it was an emergency. My heart raced as I grabbed it off the nightstand, expecting to hear something terrible about the kids. But it wasn't about them. It was about her. James, she said, her voice shaky. I need to talk to you. Can I come over? What's going on? I asked, sitting up, my heart still pounding. Is everything okay? There was a long pause on the other end, and then she whispered, I made a mistake. Those words sent a chill down my spine. I had heard them before, countless times. And every time, they had led to more pain, more betrayal. Marcia, it's late, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. If it's important, just tell me now. I can't, she said, her voice breaking. Please, James. I just need to talk to you in person. Against my better judgment, I agreed. I told her to come by, but warned her that if this was some ploy to get me to help her again, it wasn't going to work. She promised it wasn't, but I didn't believe her. Not really. She showed up at my door 20 minutes later, looking worse than I had ever seen her. Her face was pale, her hair a mess, and her eyes were red from crying. I could tell right away that whatever this was, it wasn't good. I let her inside, but kept my distance, crossing my arms as she stood in the middle of the living room, wringing her hands. What is it? I asked, not bothering with pleasantries. Why are you here? She looked at me, her lip trembling. I messed up again, James. I felt my stomach drop. What do you mean? I saw Nathan again, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I didn't mean to, but it just happened. I stared at her, my blood boiling. After everything, after all the promises she had made to the kids, to me, she had gone back to him. The man she had wrecked our family for. You're kidding me, I said, my voice low and dangerous. After all this time, after everything you put me and the kids through, you went back to him? She nodded, her shoulders shaking with sobs. It was a mistake. I know that now. He doesn't want anything to do with me. He used me, James. I was stupid, and now I've lost everything. I wanted to yell at her, to scream about how selfish she was, how she had destroyed our family for nothing. But instead, I just stood there, staring at her in disbelief. How many times had I been in this exact situation, listening to her excuses, watching her cry, only to be betrayed again? I can't help you, I said finally, my voice cold. Not this time. I don't expect you to, she whispered, wiping her eyes. I don't know where else to go. Go home, Marcia, I said, walking to the door and opening it. You're not my problem anymore. She looked at me for a long moment, like she was hoping I'd change my mind. But I didn't. I stood there, waiting, until she finally nodded and walked out the door. As soon as she was gone, I locked the door behind her and leaned against it, taking a deep breath. I had done it. I had finally cut her off, for good this time. There was no going back. I wasn't going to let her drag me down with her anymore. Weeks went by after that night, and I thought I had finally closed the chapter on Marcia. I had drawn a line in the sand, a boundary that I refused to let her cross again. It was the only way I could protect myself, protect the kids. Life seemed to move forward. The routine became steady, school drop-offs, work, weekends with Ben and Sophie, and no more late-night calls from Marcia. I had convinced myself that I had done everything right. She had pushed me to the edge, and I had cut her off at the right time. I started to feel a sense of relief, as if I could finally reclaim my life. But life has a way of turning that peace into chaos when you least expect it. It was a Saturday afternoon when the doorbell rang. Ben and Sophie were upstairs playing video games, and I was folding laundry in the living room. The kids had spent the night with Marcia the weekend before, and everything had gone smoothly, or so I thought. I figured it was just a package delivery, maybe the mailman. But when I opened the door, I saw 2 police officers standing on my porch. Mr. James Carter, one of them asked. Yeah, I replied, my stomach immediately sinking. Is something wrong? We need to speak with you about Marcia Carter. The air left my lungs in an instant. Something about their tone, the way they looked at me with that mix of professional detachment and sympathy, I knew this wasn't going to be good. I stepped aside, letting them in, my heart pounding in my chest. They sat down at the kitchen table, and I followed, barely able to keep myself upright. I don't even remember the exact words they used. Something about an accident, something about her car being found off the road, flipped over in a ravine. They said it appeared she had been driving erratically, that it was possible she had been drinking, though the toxicology report wasn't back yet. The finality of it hit me like a truck. Marcia was gone. Dead. I sat there, staring at the officers, unable to process what they were telling me. How was this possible? How could she be dead? Just weeks ago, she was standing in my living room, begging for another chance, crying over the mess she had made of her life. I didn't even get to say goodbye. The last thing I had told her was to go home, that I couldn't help her. Now I would never be able to help her, even if I wanted to. The officers asked me if I needed anything, if I had someone to call. But I was too numb to respond. I just shook my head. They left me with a card, told me to call if I had any questions, and then they were gone, leaving me alone in the house that now felt unbearably quiet. I didn't know what to do. I sat there, my mind racing, trying to make sense of it. Marcia had made mistakes, yes, but I never wished this on her. I never wanted this to be her ending. She was the mother of my kids. She had been my wife. How was I going to explain this to Ben and Sophie? How was I going to look them in the eye and tell them that their mom wasn't coming back? The thought of them shattered whatever wall I had been holding up inside. I broke down, my body shaking with sobs that I hadn't let myself feel in years. I had spent so long being angry at Marcia, hating her for what she did to us. I had buried those feelings so deep that I didn't even realize how much I still cared until now, until it was too late. I cried for what felt like hours, until I heard Sophie's voice from the top of the stairs. "Dad," she called, her voice small and hesitant. I quickly wiped my eyes, trying to pull myself together. I couldn't let them see me like this. But when I looked up, both Ben and Sophie were standing at the bottom of the stairs, watching me with wide, worried eyes. I realized in that moment that there was no hiding this from them. I had to tell them the truth. "Come here," I said, my voice hoarse. They walked over, sitting down on the couch beside me, their little faces full of confusion. I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words, but there were no right words for something like this. "There's something I need to tell you," I began, my voice trembling. "It's about your mom." Sophie's eyes filled with fear, and Ben's face tightened. They already knew something was wrong. "There was an accident," I said, barely able to get the words out. "Your mom, she's gone." Silence. Sophie blinked, as if she didn't understand what I was saying. "Gone where?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "She died, sweetheart. She was in a car accident." I watched as their faces changed, the realization hitting them like a tidal wave. Sophie burst into tears, throwing herself into my arms, her tiny body shaking with sobs. Ben sat there, stunned, his eyes filling with tears but refusing to cry. He looked up at me, searching for something, some kind of explanation, but all I could do was pull him close and hold them both. I didn't have answers. I didn't have the words to make it better. All I had was the unbearable weight of knowing that they were going to grow up without their mother, and I couldn't fix that. I couldn't undo the mistakes that had led us here. I had pushed her away, told her she wasn't my problem anymore. And now she never would be. The funeral came and went, a blur of condolences and whispered conversations. People came to pay their respects, to talk about the good things they remembered about Marcia. But all I could think about was the years we spent together, the good times, the bad, the love that had somehow turned into anger and pain. I kept replaying our last conversation in my head. The way she had looked at me that night, broken and desperate. I had thought I was doing the right thing by cutting her off, by refusing to let her back into my life. But now, I wasn't so sure. Had I pushed her too far? Had my own bitterness driven her over the edge? The guilt gnawed at me, eating away at every memory I had of her. After the funeral, the house felt emptier than ever. Ben and Sophie were quiet, retreating into their rooms, trying to process the loss in their own ways. I tried to be there for them, to comfort them as best I could, but I was struggling just as much as they were. Late at night, after the kids had gone to bed, I would sit in the living room, staring at the photos on the wall. There was one of Marcia holding Sophie when she was just a baby, smiling down at her with that soft, loving look she used to give. I wondered when things had changed, when that love had turned into something else. Maybe it had been gradual, maybe it had happened all at once. I didn't know. All I knew was that she was gone, and I couldn't change any of it. The kids needed me more than ever now, but there were moments when I didn't know how to keep going. The weight of everything, the loss, the guilt, the regret, was suffocating. I had spent so long trying to move on from Marcia's betrayal, trying to heal from the pain she had caused. But now that she was gone, I realized that the healing never came. The pain never really went away. And as much as I wanted to believe that I had done everything right, a part of me would always wonder if I could have done more, if I could have saved her before it was too late.